I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the suspenseful world of a terrific book. It is called Inspector Sterling, Case of the Wandering Minister. It's written by a wonderful author. His name is Reverend Dave Clements. This gripping novel follows Inspector Sterling as he uncovers chilling secrets and solves gruesome murders at the opulent Grand Hotel, where trust is a rare commodity. Join us as we explore this thrilling first installment in the Inspector Sterling series, where every chapter unravels a new clue. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing this terrific page turner of a book. The links are below this interview. Reverend, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Great to be here.
What made you decide to develop a character like Inspector Sterling and build a series around him? Have you been intrigued by detective mysteries? Tell us a little bit about the backstory.
Growing up, I always was interested in mysteries. Agatha Christie, my mother was an avid reader of Agatha Christie, and I always enjoyed that. And I was introduced to Perry Mason after all the reruns, and always enjoyed that. And so I've always had this inquisitive mind about murder mysteries. And I had written a first book, which is about my experiences of living and working in South Africa. And my publisher said, "Well, I think you have more books. You've lived in many places in the world." And I said, "Well, I'm not quite sure what to write about." And she said, "Well, create a character." And so after a lot of thought, Inspector Sterling was born, and I knew that he was going to solve murders, and so it was only natural that he be from Chicago, and which is a city that I love very much and have grown up in and that sort of thing. So he was born, and then it was just like, well, the setting for the first novel was because of my ministry. I'm an interim minister, which means I go into congregations after a minister's left, either because he's been fired or retired. And there's a whole group of us across the country of different faiths. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to do this as a setting in the Catskills of these ministers are coming together for a conference, and all of a sudden they start getting murdered. So
Exactly. It's a great premise, and it's very unusual, very unique. Obviously, you brought your background in the ministry to the storytelling. Tell us, first of all, if you cast this as a movie, I want to play Inspector Sterling. I think that's
great.
perfect, but we'll see. But there might be a whole bunch of other actors lined up for the role. Have you envisioned this as a series of films, perhaps, or even a TV series?
I have envisioned it as yes, maybe something that could be picked up by one of the streamers, Netflix, all of them. And so I'm kind of writing in that genre. People say, "Well, how do you write? Do you ever get writer's block?" And I really don't. I set aside time. Mondays are my day off, and I set aside time to write. And I usually write a chapter, and then it just sits there, and then I come back the next day and next Monday, read the end of the chapter and say, "Oh, okay, that's where we left the audience. Now we need to take care of that and then have something else happen." So that's kind of how my style goes, and it's fun. And I never know, I know some authors like plan at everything, and I write from that moment. So sometimes the idea comes in, I go, "Oh yeah, that would be a great thing to put in there." So people say, "Well, do you know how it's going to end?" And in this case, do you know who the murder is going to be? I really didn't know until I got to the very end and I was writing it. So
Right. Great. Sounds like true inspiration. Tell us about this setting of the Grand Hotel and why you chose that.
well, I wanted to have it happen in a hotel, and I looked to see, is there anything in the Catskills at this Grand Hotel? And instead I found the Hotel Washington, which is in Vermont. And I found out that it had been the site of the World Bank creation and the Monetary Fund, and there was a special room called the Sunshine Room, and I thought, I've got the setting. And so that hotel actually became the setting, and then it just seemed like it'd be great because old hotels have all sorts of passageways and everything else, and so um,
Yeah, they
you know,
kind of and lend themselves to mystery. They kind of feel like Humphrey Bogart should be lurking around the corner at any moment,
right,
right?
right,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
The themes of trust and deceit are explored in your book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's I felt that you know, people look to ministers and they trust them, and yet that's not always the case. And so I wanted to kind of explore that in a way that was wrapped around a story. And so when I was doing some research, I thought there's got to be some sort of art theft that's happened that hasn't been solved. And of course, then I came upon the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum and the 13 paintings that were stolen. I thought, oh, now I have some father, because now I can weave that into the story, which will not only educate people about this experience in the US, but also makes good storytelling. And so,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book. Once upon a time.
yeah, once upon a time, Inspector Sterling gets a call from his good friend who's managing a Grand Hotel and said, or actually, he said, come and stay with us. You've been, you need a rest. You just finished a grueling murder case where you solved a murder that had taken 4 years, and it was a husband and wife that were joint ministers, and the administrative assistant killed them. So that's kind of how it starts. And then he goes there and he's really anticipating just relaxing and having a good time, and he's with his good friends, the hotel manager and his partner, and suddenly a murder happens. And then he's he's thrust into, like, okay, can you help us solve this? And then within hours a second murder happens, and so now he's really enthralled, and then it continues on. um he finds he answers questions of, well, how could this happen? There's no, how did someone get in there? And so it's kind of intrigue of, as you go into, like, you know what's next, and it goes through the whole thing. And finally the summary is like, bring everybody in a room, typical to Cousteau and other great
Right.
mystery things, and he's going through and saying, well, this is about you, is that true? And so you go through all the kind of the characters, and then it comes to, like, the final thing, and a lot of people who've read it go, I never would have thought that would have the person behind it. So that was kind of my goal. So
That's great. It's kind of like a courtroom drama at the end. I guess even in the Agatha Christie novels,
right.
it's the same thing where you assemble all of the potential suspects and potential victims as well, and go through the
And you kind of find out how it all connects, and then a
yes.
lot of the clues along the way then begin to make sense. So
Exactly, exactly. You weave it all together. It's a very satisfying ending to the book. I love the fact that he's fresh off another murder mystery when he goes to get a little R&R and he's dragged back in. It sets up a prequel, of course. What was that case? But I understand you're working on or have recently completed a sequel to this book. Tell us about that.
yeah, it basically, he's finished this case, and he gets a call from his friend Kevin, who's in Istanbul, and say, hey, three of my staff have been kidnapped, and this important dagger has been stolen, and I just need your help in trying to get him back. And so he agrees to go to Istanbul. And on the way there, a murder happens in Munich at the airport. And so then he's immediately thrust into that. And the rest of the murders happen in Istanbul. And some of the characters from the first book reappear in the second book. And one of the minor characters in the first book really becomes a major character in the second book. Um,
Wonderful, wonderful. And this seems like it could be unlimited. I mean, it could be like, a Philip Marlowe kind of thing or a Sam Spade where they have numerous adventures, one novel leading to the next, leading to the
right.
next, so
And
forth.
actually, I will start working on the third in the series, which is based on the fact that Inspector Sterling um, at the end of this book, this new book, gets a call and he finds out that his mother has died, and he goes back to Chicago, and in getting there, he uncovers that she actually was murdered.
Hmm.
And then it goes along that. And so that I will draw upon my history of Chicago and my knowledge there and bring in all these fun things that, like
It
the
sounds
famous.
great. There is something fun about these murder mystery novels. Even though murder obviously is the worst thing anybody can possibly do, reading them from an entertainment standpoint in a novel is really, really intriguing. Has your work as a minister played into the themes of the book? I know honesty and deceit are part of this book. Do you explore some of the common failings of human nature because of your work?
Yeah, and I kind of do it not in a right in your face, but kind of indirectly, and the third book really is going to go into kind of the mind and life of Inspector Sterling. So people are going to find out more about him, what makes him tick, what is. So it will be kind of an introspective, but at the same time, building on the fact that, we really like this character. We
Yeah,
want to have more. So,
exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly.
and I
During
and I planning a fourth book after that, which is going to take place in the wine country, drawing upon my experience living here in Northern California in the wine country in Sonoma County. So,
And it's also a great reason to go revisit some of these places, go back to Chicago and sit in Shaw's, order a dirty martini, and think about
absolutely.
what Inspector Sterling would be doing at a time like this, actually kind of live the role, just like a character actor or a method actor. I think that would be terrific as well. Plus, lots of fun. The name of the book we've been exploring today is called Inspector Sterling, Case of the Wandering Minister. It's written by Reverend Dave Clements. It's a gripping novel that follows the inspector as he uncovers chilling secrets and solves gruesome murders at the opulent Grand Hotel, where trust is a rare commodity. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us here today on
Thank you very
Spotlight.
much.
I appreciate your time. Great talking with you, sir. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.